The following video may contain mature language and or subject matter which make it inappropriate for young audiences.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
Let me just say up front, I did not hate Frozen 2. I didn't think this was a terrible movie, I just didn't think it was very good either. I found it decidedly mediocre. One thing I will give it points for though, and it's kinda sad that I have to give it points for this, but here we are. This movie does not shit all over the legacy of its predecessors, so in that way at least, it's a lot better than Wreck-It Ralph 2 or most of the live-action Disney remakes.
It's like a thing.
It's also not just a Xerox of the first film. This movie is indeed telling a new story and trying its darndest to get you interested in the broader mythology of the world of Frozen. The problem is that it still doesn't do anything to justify itself. After all, I imagine it's probably pretty difficult to write a satisfying sequel to a story that ends with, "and they all live happily ever after." But when Disney tells you you're doing another one, you're doing another one. And for what it's worth, it does seem like effort was put into this.
To say that this movie is ambitious is a big understatement.
The whole thing just smacks to me of being completely unnecessary and tacked on, kind of like one of those direct-to-video sequels that Disney's TV division kept pinching out in the late 90s and early 2000s, only with a much bigger budget. And you can definitely see that budget on screen. The animation is fantastic, and a couple of scenes are hauntingly atmospheric, almost like a horror film. If it could have kept up that tone for the entire movie, I think I would have liked it a lot more. The thing is, where the first Frozen was a, by 2013, above-average Disney film that could be enjoyed by all ages, the sequel is the definition of your average forgettable kids movie. Where the first Frozen wasn't afraid of breaking with traditional fairy tale tropes, the sequel is made up of almost nothing but tropes. The plot is extremely predictable, which is unfortunate since most of it is framed as a mystery.
Elsa, the past is not what it seems.
The movie opens up with this big flashback where it's made immediately painfully clear what the two big twists are going to be later on. Like, I know this is a kids movie, and I'm sure it'll have most of the young ones fooled, but I doubt it's gonna get past many above the age of 12 or 13. And again, I think part of the wide appeal of the first one is that you could get something out of it regardless of what age you are. Nothing surprising happens in Frozen 2. It doesn't do anything to further inform or advance any of the characters or their relationships with one another. It's all just very safe. At certain points, the film seems to hint that it's going to end in a way that might be taking a bit of a risk, but then, nah, actually, it's all good. Nothing needs to change. Status quo is still king. Queen. And that's not to say that safe equals bad. It doesn't have to, and I don't think it necessarily does here. In fact, the only real major complaint I have with Frozen 2 is that unlike the first film, which is completely built around the relationship between Elsa and Anna, the sequel has no need whatsoever for two lead characters. Elsa is the only character in the main cast who's really all that important to the story. There's even one part towards the end where it actually feels like some of it had to be rewritten just so they could give Anna something, anything to do. Without getting into any specifics, during the third act, there's this big exposition scene where Elsa learns a deep dark secret and that there's this thing she's gonna have to do in order to resolve the overriding conflict in the story. Except before she can do it, the movie just sort of puts her on timeout for a couple of minutes, at which point Anna, who was not with Elsa for any of this, is given like an abridged version of the exact same exposition we just saw, and then has to go act on it in Elsa's stead. This is Anna's only meaningful contribution to the plot, and it feels very clunky. It would have felt a lot more natural if it were all just Elsa, but then of course there would be no reason at all for Anna to be in the film, and we can't have that or the kids will have less merch to beg their parents for at Christmas.
I'm going with you. Anna? No.
Speaking of no reason at all to be in the film, you can tell that they had no clue whatsoever what to do with Kristoff, who gets nothing to work with here besides this one running gag where he keeps trying to propose to Anna but keeps messing it up. It's funny the first couple of times, but it gets old fast. Olaf, meanwhile, is a lot more annoying this time around than he was in the first movie. This is more or less what I was afraid he was going to be like originally, and I'm not a fan. Though to be fair, every single child in the theater laughed hysterically every single time he did anything. I also found that the songs were a big step down. Like, the singing is all fine still. Idina Menzel and Kristen are still both great vocalists, they just don't have much to work with. I didn't find any of these tracks especially memorable. Nothing comes even remotely close to Let It Go, or Do You Want to Build a Snowman, or The First Time in Forever, or Love is an Open Door. Yeah, it's just a big step down all around. Again though, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that this film is a complete travesty or insult to my sensibilities. Most kids will probably still enjoy it, maybe even adults if they go in without any expectations. I just found it kind of nothing special really. If you don't have any young kids and therefore have a choice whether or not you're going to see this film, I'd say if you're curious, just wait until it's available to stream, and if not, don't bother, you won't be missing much. And if you like this video, which I once again assure you is not for kids, you'd be doing me a huge favor if you could hit that like button, subscribe for more in the future, and ring the bell to stay updated on all of my future videos. Leave a comment down below with any of your thoughts on Frozen 2, and check out some of the other great stuff I've got up here on my channel. As always, thanks so much to all of you guys for watching, and take care.